everyone and welcome. I'm Deb and this is DB Designs and Sewing Australia. Now today I'm going to show you how I'm going to reinforce the collar of an about town, what's it called, about town popover shirt. It requires interfacing in the upper collar, not even in the under collar. And in this eyelet fabric, as you can see, we'll be able to see white through it. So the first things I'm going to do is get the pattern pieces. So this is the under collar and this is the upper collar. This is the one that's supposed to have the interfacing on it. You can easily tell which is the right side and which is the wrong side. So that's the wrong side and that's the right side, and that's my iron beeping at me. And I've put a pin in the center of this one, and that's going to be my upper collar. They are two separate pattern pieces. And this is my under collar. So I've got two pins in that. This way I can tell which one's which. Although you can write on the fabric, especially in an iron off marking pen or pencil, it's actually quite difficult to draw on that. It's quite a loose weave. So when I made the popover top and I made it as pajamas in a double gauze, I just didn't worry about the interfacing because I didn't want interfacing in pajamas. And so what I've done is on a notepad, I have written that the under collar's got two pins and the top collar's got one pin. And the first thing we're going to do is put the pattern pieces together as if we were stitching them. And this is where my pins, so I know which is the upper and which is the under collar, come in handy. So I'm just going to pin along the top as if I had stitched it. So now I've got the two collars pinned together, remembering the single pin is the upper collar. The two pins, which is there and there, is the under collar. So if I was to turn this out as if I had sewn it, we can see that that is what we would have. This would be the upper collar. So what we don't want is to be able to see anything white under this section here. This is a section that's going to be the collar like this. And so I'm going to use a product called formband T12 bias tape. So this is like iron-on interfacing. This is the packaging here. I usually buy mine from the Dahlia Sewciety or Maaidesign. So I just buy it when I'm putting in an order. And it looks like I haven't got much left, but I've got a few more packets up there. You can get it in white or you can get it in black. So this is what it looks like, and I hope you can see that. It has got a stitch line in it. So this is going to give us much more structure. So what I need to do is work out how I can put this in without it being able to be seen from this side. So on my collar, I know that this side here can actually take it. So when we look at it like this, this is the under collar, this is the top collar. So when it's folded down, it's the under collar we're going to need to attach that tape to. So I'm going to iron that on. So I'm just pinning this along the edge like this. Now you'll notice that I do need to get another packet out, but you'll notice that the line of machine stitching in it is not in the center. And I already know the seam allowance is 1 centimetre on this collar, and the tape is 1.2 centimetres, and the stitching line that's in this interfacing tape is about 0.8. So as you can see, it's slightly off center. I want the outside edge, so matching to the raw edge, this edge with the bigger distance is what I want on it. So the edge of the interfacing with more distance from the stitch line needs to be against the raw edge. And I'm doing this because my seam allowance is 1 centimetre, and so it's going to get me much closer to that stitch. And I did have to open my new packet. Even comes with a little gold pin to keep it good. So you can make your own. So it's called Bias Tape T12 Iron-On Bias Tape. It doesn't say that it's got a stitch line in it, but it certainly does have. Now the way I press this on, first of all I start with just tapping it on with the iron. And once I've got everything in place and happy with its placement, and this goes for all of my iron-on interfacing, I sandwich it in my Rajah cloth. Now I have got 3 Rajah cloths. I've got this Rajah cloth, which is an old one. As you can see, it's a bit like grubby looking, or probably just a bit overheated with the iron looking. I've got my normal one that I do my normal pressing with, and I've also got a wedding dress one, just to make sure that nothing gets onto any wedding dresses or anything white. So this is what it looks like when it's on. I have done the bias tape. You can see the stitch line in the interfacing bias tape is furthest from the edge. So that is going to give me a really good collar. Better than it would have been, because I don't think I would have been happy not to have anything. Pajamas, yes. A really crisp, heavy cotton that might have some sort of eyeletting in it would be okay without the interfacing. But when I did my PJs, I didn't put interfacing in. But what you've got to work out is, which side am I putting the tape on? And so what we need to remember is that the undercollar is very slightly smaller than the upper collar. So you can see how there's like a little bit of slack to be taken up. So when I sew this, I'll be sewing with the part that needs the slack taken up on the feed dogs. That helps to take up some of the slightly excess fabric. It's not a huge amount, and you can get the same effect by stretching it, but you don't have to if you let the feed dogs take it up. Let's sew it. So now this is all pressed and turned out. Remembering the top collar had 1 pin. Now if you're going to use this pin method so that you know which is the top collar and which is the under collar, might I suggest that you always put the pins on the outside of the collar and not on the inside of the collar, because if this was on the inside of the collar and then I stitched it to the garment with these pins in it, which I may well leave in until after I've attached the collar, then they'll be on the inside and I won't be able to get them out. So really good idea to actually do it on the outside of your fabric. So this is the under collar. So you can see that the under collar has allowed the top collar to roll over just by a mil or two, so that when you look at the upper collar, it has not got any of the under collar showing. And that's the idea of the collars being separate sizes. So if we look at them here, this is the top collar, which was supposed to have the interfacing. We actually put the interfacing tape on the under collar. So if I'm measuring top to top, you can see it's that much different. So not very much difference, a slight bit of difference here. And down here. Doesn't look like very straight cutting lines. It looks like the cat did it. But this is the difference between a top collar and an under collar. Sometimes the under collar will be cut on the bias and it will be in two pieces. Because it's on the bias, it will bounce back slightly and give you that I'm slightly rolled look. Top collar on your jacket, you're not going to be able to see where that join is. Okay, so I've just gone and looked at the pattern instructions and I should have folded over a section here. So I'm just going to unpick the edge and do that. Okay, so this is how the collar looks. It's supposed to be like that. So now we're going to sew this to the shirt. So here is the top. Now it's got stay stitching, which was the first thing that I did because it's quite fragile fabric really. And so by having this slight rolled edge here actually makes it easier for attaching the collar. So now the collar's pinned on, I'm going to go and sew it. And so here's the collar sewn on. This is the collar. There's the collar sewn on, and so this part is going to fold over there, and you can stitch in the ditch, but I'll hand sew it because I'm a hand sewer. Some people hate hand sewing. Wouldn't want to be making any wedding dresses if you hate hand sewing. Just something to be aware of because I hand sew a lot of it and then machine sew it. Especially when it comes to fitting. So I will press this and then my iron stops beeping and then hand sew that down and our collar will be finished. And what you can see is this. So this interfacing that's white is there and it's going to be facing the underneath of the collar. So you can see there that you can see the white through it, but that's the underneath of the collar. And nowhere does that show. So if you're using an eyeletted fabric that is not black or white, and you're supposed to put the interfacing on the top collar, which in this case that's what it is. Use some interfacing tape and do it around all the edges on the bottom collar. Yes, the middle of the collar is not stabilized at all, but this is actually looking okay now that the edges are all structurally sound. So it's really just to add some structure to it so it's got some integrity, especially on those corners. You really want a bit of interfacing. So worst comes to worst, even if you just put a corner of interfacing into the corners. But you can see how that can work and how you don't get to see any of the interfacing. Now, if I was making this in a black or a white eyelet, I would fully interface the collar, but I would fully interface the under collar because I don't want to be able to see the interfacing straight through. Even though technically you would be able to see it, I would just prefer it to be on the under collar rather than the upper collar in the case of an eyeleted fabric. So I will probably come back to you shortly with that top completely finished. Don't you love the colour? It's just beautiful. So that's all from me today. So that's how to put interfacing into a collar that's eyeleted. And to be honest, even factory made garments it's not very often that you will find something other than black or white or nude coloured, like skin coloured. But even then, when I've tried to buy the skin coloured, they always say they're out of stock. They say they've got it, and then when just before you push the button, it says actually you can choose black or white. No, I don't want black or white. I can get that here in Australia. I don't need to buy it overseas. So very difficult to find woven interfacing that is coloured, like an iron-on style. Other than that, in this, I could have found some like cotton lawn or something like that. I made another collar, and if I was thinking that it was really, really fragile, rather than using another piece of eyeleted fabric, which is sort of a little bit lumpier and bumpier, I could have found a piece of fabric that was the same colour as this and put that in as a second collar. I would still be attaching it to the under collar, not to the upper collar. It can be, it sort of was what we did in the old days before iron-on interfacing. And I remember when I was like 16 saying to my mum, there's this new interfacing. Someone at school had some and gave me some. And the first time she ever bought it, iron-on interfacing, she went, this is terrible. Never using this. And so iron-on interfacing has come so far because admittedly the first sort that we had was terrible. It's the sort that after you watch the garment, it was all balled up in a ball inside the collar. And it had been stitched down, but it's still disintegrated. But the sort they have these days, if the application is really, really good, it should withstand washing. I honestly don't put my things in the clothes dryer very much. I certainly never put anything like this in the clothes dryer. The things I put in the clothes dryer are the kids' things, like the undies I made for Mia the other day. I've washed and dried all of that fabric and I've dried it in the clothes dryer because that's what her mother will be doing. So when it comes to the kids' clothes, I do dry it in the dryer before making up the garment because that's what's going to happen to it when it's in actual use. That's my tips on interfacing the collar of an eyeletted fabric. I will come back to you soon with a completed shirt. Until then, don't forget to like and subscribe, and everybody have a fabulous sewing week. Bye.